I'd like to ask the Minister for Infrastructure what actions are being taken to reverse the decline in passengers on the electric railways.
Minister for Infrastructure, Mr Harmer.
Thank you, Mr President. Fortunately, the matter is not quite as serious as appears in the newspaper. The summer of 2018 was a record year on the MER due to the exceptional weather and the promotion of the 125th anniversary. The 2019 season is down, but still the second best season in the last 10 years with respect to revenue in 2019 exceeding 2017 by over 130,000 across the 4 railways operated by my department. As well as the return to more normal weather last year, the Promenades works have had an impact, and in particular we know from previous research that many horse tram passengers transfer to the MER, and a lack of horse tram service last year has had a significant effect. There will be an improvement to the horse tram operation during 2020, but not sufficient to restore numbers. It will be 2021 before we expect the growth that we've seen over the last 10 years to be restored. There is some good news for next year, as we have forward bookings for 731 routes versus 698 in 2019 and 682 in 2018. It will also be the 125th anniversary of the Snaefell Mountain Railway, which should encourage some more visitors by enthusiasts. This shows how it takes all 4 railways working closely together with Manx National Heritage to grow the tourist market.
Shimmins.
Thank you, Mr President. I'm grateful for that response. A number of members of the public have contacted me to advise that when they took their family and visitors on a day out on the Manx Electric Railway last summer, they boarded the tram but then had to get off because the guard could only take cash for tickets. They had anticipated that they could pay by card like pretty much any other train in these times. Why can't you pay by card? Why haven't the railways modernised?
You can on the steam trains.
Minister.
Thank you. I'm not sure aware of the whole situation, as I say, on other railways. I believe you can, but and certainly we've gone into contactless on buses. Obviously, I'll look into that to see what technology we could introduce. Obviously, the more methods we can take payment, the better. I would emphasise that actually individual numbers actually being fairly consistent. So we had a reasonably good year last year.
Thank you, Mr President. Other members of the public have advised me that they have tried to travel on the rail with their bicycles, but were refused, so they could not buy a ticket. Other railways have grown their passenger numbers and income by accepting bicycles. Why do our railways not tap into this growing popularity of cycling to grow their passengers? The railways have goods vans, which they use for photo trains for enthusiasts to take pictures, which is great. Why can't they use them to transport bikes? Mountain biking is growing. Why can't the Snaefell Mountain Railway transport them to the summit? Then folk can ride down the trails to Laxey. It would be very popular and grow our passenger numbers.
We'll buy a return ticket then, will they?
Okay. Certainly, I'll have a look into it. I mean, obviously, there are limitations with historical trams and what they can do. I mean, obviously, I've been frustrated in other areas where I've wanted to use bicycles. But if we can do it, then certainly we will make efforts. But remember, these trams, 125 years old. It may not be feasible, but certainly we'll look into it.
Mrs. Brennan.
Thank you, Mr President. Will the Minister consider talking to his officers about the ways that the trams and the steam trains can interlink with other aspects of transport and indeed other policy areas, because there is obviously active travel, climate change. They do seem to operate in a distinct area which is just for them. Thank you.
Thank you. You've hit on a very interesting point, and when we're talking about a strategy, in actual fact, at first we were talking about a rail and bus strategy, for example, but actually they're two very, very different things. Rail is very much a journey for what's termed in the industry as a journey of desire. It's a leisure activity. You don't have to do it, and it's very much working with, as I say, M&H and the tourist industry, the visit agency, about increasing revenue and increasing tourists. And whereas buses very much form part of what we internally are looking at a smarter movement strategy, which is all about taking people away from their cars and looking at active travel, how we can do better journeys, bring people to where they live, so we're not doing unnecessary journeys, taking active travel as your next step, taking a bus journey as better, and that fits in with our climate agenda. So the two are very, very, very separate pieces, and I think when we tackle those two and address the issues and investment in those two separate pieces, we will get the right strategy.
Honourable Member Mr Shimmins.
Thank you, Mr President. I appreciate, as the Minister says, that the trams are very old, but previously were used to transport all sorts of goods all around our island. It seems to me we need a more creative approach and more commerciality on our railways. Will he take action to try and instil a more commercial, modern, open-minded approach to the operation of our railways to try and reduce the multi-million-pound annual cost to our taxpayers?
Thank you. And I'd just like to remind the member, and I appreciate his comments, it was the second best year in terms of revenue. So it is a commercial, and we need to be, and I just want to emphasise, because I suppose sitting some down, and there's been some other sort of headlines which have been very frustrated. Second best year in terms of revenue, and commerciality, but he's right, it's really important. We will work with innovative ideas, work with the tourist agent, visit agency, we'll work with the member, to increase revenue and to continue to increase numbers.
Honourable Member Mr Hooper.
Thank you very much, Mr President. I remember 2017 being a record year and then 2018 being a record year. It seems like every year is a record year except when it's not. I'd be grateful if the Minister could just answer three questions for me. The first, he says this is the second best year that we've had. Is that in relation to the Manx Electric Railway specifically, or is that railways as a whole? And is there a difference between the two? I remember a newspaper article talking about a change in methodology this year, which may have impacted on passenger numbers. Can you comment on the impact that methodology change has had on the passenger numbers? And lastly, I remember these numbers appearing very briefly on the Heritage Railways website. They now appear to have disappeared. I'm just curious as to why.
I can't answer the last question. I don't know. I'm not aware of the numbers, but obviously I'll look into that. In terms of record, yes. When you have a record and you have a next year's that's better, then it's another record, and it was another record, and so forth. But we had, in terms of revenue and in terms of numbers, it was a dip last year compared to previous years, but it was the second best across the railways. My point I'm making, and again, I work with the Department of Enterprise on this, is that they are holistic. I think people try and separate one tram and one train from another. That simply doesn't work. We offer a package, a very good package, I believe, on the Isle of Man about our visit agency across all of our sites. Across, as I say, the Castle Rushen, Peel Castle, so forth. It's a whole package, and we're in danger of splitting things up. It doesn't work. We know for a fact that passengers come for a day. They actually go from one method of transport to another. And we know that next year we've got a really good offering. I'm glad to be able to advertise it today. 125th anniversary of the Snaefell Mountain Railway. We have some really good, unique events. We must never sit on our laurels. I appreciate as a revenue, it doesn't make money, so you wouldn't do it, and it's only on the base of heritage and the base of how we fit in with the visitor economy that it stacks up. And obviously, we can't sit on our laurels. We've got to work with everyone to improve it.
Honourable Member Mrs Masker.
Thank you, Mr President. Would the Minister agree that there might be a formula that could combine supporting the historic railways whereby a modern light electric railway system could be used for commuting purposes? Looking at the gauge, it may be that would have to be something that you look at in due course, but surely there's a potential so that the heritage railways might not be the main vehicles that are used on the tracks, but you could look at alternatives to get people travelling in a different mode.
Minister.
Okay, thank you. I think it's a very interesting question, but it comes back to my point before, and I think we were getting ourselves in the department in a muddle because we were mixing journeys of desire or leisure with integrated transport. And actually they do figure very differently. And in terms of length of, if you think about commuting on the steam railway, yes, as a special treat you might have a breakfast, but it takes you an hour and a half. You can't do it every day, and I wouldn't suggest you would. And I think, I put my cards on the table as I would have never have gone for, dare I say, the diesel locomotive, because I don't believe that you're mixing a heritage railway with a mode of transport, with buses and so forth, that gets people around where they need to go. It's the same with active travel. It's about encouraging people to dispense with the car, and for healthier and for climate change, for all those other good reasons. So I think there's a danger when we try and mix something that is, and it is a special asset, and I know people have different opinions about it, but it is a special thing that we have, but it is very different to the day-to-day travel that we need to do for our jobs, for our schools, to move and make those necessary journeys.